Hi, welcome to day 30 of my human centered ocean industry transformation project. Today, I want to start part 3. So, kicking off how the ocean industries affect the world. Um, and one thing that I want to share is a couple things that I've seen come in through LinkedIn. Also, I was listening to the podcast Inside the Strategy Room that's put out by McKinsey, and they had been interviewing the authors of the ecosystem economy, which is actually a book that I just started reading a few days ago, in how to lead in a new age of sectors without borders. And there was also an article that just came out, well, a few weeks ago, but I just saw it today, on strategizing across organizations. And I feel like some of those things go hand in hand, both with what I'm trying to accomplish in this project, and then uh, how we could actually do it and how the ocean industries affect the world, because the ocean industries really affect not only the ecosystem from like an ecological earth point of view, but also the human economic ecosystem. So everything travels on a vessel, almost 90% of everything. So every piece that makes up your iPhone, to your cars, to the pieces that make up your cars, to the raw material, to grain across a great portion of the world. So if you eat bread, there's a good chance that that grain was once on a ship in bulk form. Um, a lot of our energy is transported over water, especially chemical sourced energy. So, be it coal or fossil fuels, a lot of it is transported on board ships. Um, Books, clothing, shoes, pens, you name it. It's probably had at least one part of it that's been on the ship at some point. So, the ocean industries really have a huge effect on how human existence is today. Because now most economies have become so specialized that they're not necessarily producing everything that they need to survive or thrive in the area that they're located in. So a lot of it has to come from somewhere else, specifically things like minerals and food, because most of those are not necessarily grown or mined or sourced from where they are consumed. So that's one way that you can think about the ocean industries, is that 90% of all economic growth that happens is also happening because it's carried on a ship, and there's a long kind of tradition of that. But if we kind of get back to these articles that I want to talk about, and the book, is that in the article that's on MIT Sloan, is the importance for the world's businesses to really take an economic viewpoint in strategy. And it's called Strategizing Across Organizations. And I'll try to put a link. But it starts out, and I'll kind of quote it, is capitalizing on big opportunities and solving systemic problems will require organizations to come together and develop strategies as a group, which is completely what I've been talking about with this project, because I don't believe that any of the existing um, organizations in the ocean space, or lobbying groups in the ocean space, or companies in the ocean space will be able to solve the kind of problems and challenges that the industry is facing overall by themselves. And I don't think, without having, if we look at the big map, a lot of these players come together, and work together to develop strategies as a group and actually workshop and try out and test strategies and find something that works, I don't think that we're going to be able to make the fuel transition as fast as we are needing to. I don't think that we'll be able to really streamline the digitalization process to the point that it really reduces the emissions in the industry to the point that it could or needs to, because of all of the different players that end up becoming bottlenecks in the industry and even in the data flow. If you look at the digitalization of papers for bills of lading, that's still not digitalized, and they've been talking about it for 20 years. And it's because the right players aren't in the room to develop strategies as a group for how to actually do this. So papers are still getting shipped all over the world by air freight to make sure that they're there to do the cargo papers for the vessels. And I find that completely insane and crazy. And there has been this ship racing service. There was another book that I'm also reading at the same time, and I have a hard time remembering all the titles because I'm skipping between books in my notebook. It was Understanding Global Trade by Helpman. And in that book, they had actually talked about um, steamships and the fact that they were rerouting the port papers to be able to beat the vessel when it goes around Cape Horn by taking the papers to the Suez before it was the Suez and making a camel ride with the papers to the other side is crazy. And in effect, we're still doing that today. So I find it completely insane that we still have not been able to get all of these silos in the ocean space together, as well as our adjacent industries, to be able to develop the strategies as a group that we really need to develop to overcome these challenges with emissions, to overcome the challenges with circularity, with ship breaking, which hopefully I'll talk to an excellent guest about that next week. But yeah, there's so much that we can do together when we collaborate and co-develop strategies, and so little that we can do individually. So I think that it's really important to talk about the fact that we need to develop these solutions together, because there's so much that's needed here, and also so much opportunity in that space, because if you collaborate, you can have a much bigger and better solution that's really creating sustainable value that ties you together, and not trying to build your own thing that's going to be much smaller than what you could have had together by an order of magnitude or more. It's not just one company when you're considering circularity, or when you're considering changing the primary energy sources and fuels that the world's been operating on since the Industrial Revolution, and then the transition from steam to internal combustion. And we have to develop collaborative strategies to make these transitions. And they take immense capital and infrastructure and systems and people and mindset. And we have to do it together. There's not a choice in that, really. You're either going to do it in what they were calling in the MIT article a meta organization. So if you look at clusters as one kind of meta organization, or you look at alliances, both in freight container lines and in airlines, those are kinds of meta organizations. And if you look at port shipping partnerships, and partnering with railways and those kind of things, you're also talking about meta organizations that have the potential to start taking on these challenges. And then I want to talk about the ecosystem economy book because it's similar, but it's talking about something slightly different. And I'm only about halfway through that one. But they're talking really about the barriers between sectors and disciplines and how there aren't going to be very successful siloed organizations in the future. You're not going to have an industry that's an industry into themselves and isn't overlapping or having to collaborate or having to really shape value propositions with others in the industry to make operating models that work. And as I'm reading it, I'm thinking, yes, exactly. And they had also made a point that the highest performing organizations, as far as market capitalization, happen to be ecosystem companies, which are actually not necessarily delivering value on their own, but are marketplaces, in effect, that other organizations come into. And I'm not sure exactly how that will work for the ocean industry, but I do see that kind of tendency maybe coming. And I think it's so, so interesting. And there's so much that we need to do. But that's the start of part 3. And thank you again for watching this. Feel free to comment. If you go to the post before this one, so the end of part 2, there is the full map that I have for the shapes and segments. And as we pass through part 3, we'll start part 4 and look at the stakeholders. And I have one other mention today. So I went to one of my friends who had been a mentor with me for Techstars, for the startups that are there at Techstars Energy here in Oslo. And she had been in a sister company of ours. So I work for Kongsberg Maritime normally, and she was working for Kongsberg Digital at the time. So we're in the same group, but not the same company. Her book just came out, and she had the book launch tonight. So I'm looking forward to digging into this. But it's called Determined to Lead, and it's a disruptive woman's guide because, yeah, I'm disruptive. I hope in a good way. To stop playing small and transform their career through agile leadership. So I'm really looking forward to reading this one. And I thank her for all the time she put into doing this. And I wish her all the best with her launch. And yeah, that's about all I have for you tonight. I know it's getting late. It's almost midnight. So yeah, have a good Monday night, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow.